The text message came through at 11:47 p.m. 3 words that would change everything. Give back the keys. My sister Sofia's message glowed on my phone screen as I sat in my Seattle apartment, halfway through a product launch presentation that was due by morning. I stared at those words, my coffee going cold beside my laptop. Keys to what? Our childhood home in Phoenix. The one our father Gabriel built with his own hands before a heart attack took him 8 years ago. The one our mother Carmen still lived in with her husband of 4 years, Frank Dalton. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I called Sofia immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaking. Maya, you need to come home. Like, tomorrow. Frank's losing it. He's saying the house is his now, that Mom signed everything over to him. He wants my copy of the house keys back. He's demanding yours too. Why would Mom sign over Dad's house? I asked, already pulling up flight booking sites. She wouldn't. Not without telling us. There's more. Sofia's voice dropped to a whisper. He hit me tonight. I came by to drop off Mom's birthday gift early, and he was drunk. Started yelling about how I had no right to just walk in anymore. When I told him this was my childhood home, that Dad built it, he shoved me against the wall. Mom just stood there, Maya. She didn't say anything. My hands froze over the keyboard. Did you call the police? And say what? That my stepfather pushed me in his own house? Mom would deny it. You know she would. Sofia's voice cracked. I need you here. I can't fight this alone. He's been selling Dad's tools, his equipment from the business. Thomas Rivera called me last week asking why Frank was trying to sell Dad's share of the company. I didn't even know what he was talking about. I'm booking a flight right now. Don't go back to that house alone. Stay with Derek tonight. Sofia's fiancé Derek Thompson was solid, protective. She'd be safe there. Maya, there's something else you should know. The workshop. Frank converted it into some kind of man cave. Dad's workbench, all his custom tools, the tile saw he imported from Mexico. All gone. He's been having poker nights out there with his buddies. I closed my eyes, seeing my father's workshop as it used to be. Gabriel Reyes had been a master craftsman, building Rivera and Reyes Construction from nothing into one of Phoenix's most respected contracting companies. That workshop was where he'd taught me to read blueprints, where he'd shown Sofia how to mix concrete, where he'd spent countless evenings crafting the custom details that made our house special. Book the earliest flight, Sofia said. I'll pick you up at the airport. And Maya? Bring whatever paperwork you have. Anything with Dad's signature, anything about the house or the business. I have a feeling we're going to need it. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, rage building slowly in my chest. Frank Dalton. The man had appeared in our mother's life 3 years after Dad died, presenting himself as a successful independent contractor who understood what it was like to lose a spouse. He'd been attentive, charming, patient with Mom's grief. Sofia and I had been cautiously supportive from a distance. Mom deserved companionship. She deserved not to eat dinner alone every night in the house where she'd spent 25 years with our father. But we'd never liked him. Something about Frank felt performative, like he was playing a role. The way he'd immediately started referring to Dad's house as our house. The way he'd begun rearranging furniture and replacing Dad's things within months of moving in. The way he'd discouraged Mom from visiting us, claiming the travel was too expensive, too tiring for her. I opened my file cabinet and pulled out the folder I'd labeled family documents years ago. Inside was my copy of Dad's will, the deed to the house showing both parents as owners, the partnership agreement for Rivera and Reyes Construction, and something else. Something I'd almost forgotten about. When Dad had his first minor heart attack 5 years before he died, he'd updated everything. He'd made me and Sofia co-trustees of a property trust. At 24 and 20, we'd barely understood what it meant. Dad had explained it simply. If anything happens to me, this protects your mother and protects what I've built. The house goes into trust. Your mother has lifetime rights to live there, but the property itself belongs to you and your sister. No one can take it, sell it, or leverage it without both of you agreeing. I photographed every page, uploaded them to secure cloud storage, and emailed copies to Sofia. Then I booked a flight for 6 a.m., called my boss to explain a family emergency, and started packing. The flight from Seattle to Phoenix felt endless. I'd managed 2 hours of sleep before my alarm went off at 4 a.m. Now, at 30,000 feet, I reviewed everything Sofia had sent me overnight. Photos of Dad's demolished workshop, now featuring a massive TV, a bar with neon beer signs, and poker tables. Screenshots of Craigslist ads where Frank had listed Dad's professional-grade tools for sale. A blurry photo of what looked like legal documents on the kitchen counter, too far away to read clearly. Sofia picked me up at Sky Harbor Airport looking exhausted. She'd lost weight, her usually vibrant face drawn and pale. We hugged for a long moment in the parking garage. "Mom doesn't know I texted you," she said as we drove toward North Phoenix. "Frank told her you were too busy with your important career to care about family anymore." She believes him. The Phoenix heat hit like a wall when we arrived at Desert Rose Drive. The house looked different. Dad's carefully maintained desert landscaping was dying, the native plants he'd chosen specifically for their hardiness now brown and neglected. The custom mailbox he'd built, shaped like a miniature version of the house, had been replaced with a standard metal box. Frank's truck dominated the driveway, a massive pickup with truck nuts hanging from the hitch. Dad would have been mortified. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the front door. Sofia caught my arm. "Maya, wait. I need to tell you what happened after I texted you last night. I came back this morning to get some of Mom's things, thinking Frank would be sleeping it off. He was awake. Waiting. He knew I'd contacted you. He went through Mom's phone and saw our text thread. She'd been forwarding me information, worried about the finances but too scared to confront him directly. What did he do? He told me if you set foot in this house, he'd call the police for trespassing. He said the house is in his name now, that Mom signed quit-claim deed last month. He has a restraining order ready to file against both of us if we challenge him." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. A quit-claim deed. That would transfer Mom's ownership interest to Frank. But it wouldn't affect the trust. He either didn't know about the trust, or he was gambling that we didn't remember it. "Let him call the police," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have Dad's trust documents right here. This house belongs to the Gabriel Reyes Family Trust, with Sofia and Maya Reyes as trustees. Mom has residential rights, but Frank has exactly zero legal claim to this property." I knocked on the door. Heard heavy footsteps inside. The door swung open and there stood Frank Dalton, bigger than I remembered. 6'3", barrel-chested, with thinning hair and the red-faced look of someone who drank too much and exercised too little. He wore a stained undershirt and sweatpants, even though it was nearly noon. Well, he said, his voice dripping with false cheer. "The prodigal daughter returns. Come to check on your poor abandoned mother?" He blocked the doorway with his body. "I'm here to see Mom and review some property documents." I kept my voice level, professional. "This is still my family's home." "Your family's home?" Frank's smile turned ugly. "This is my house now. Your mother signed it over to me fair and square. She's my wife. What's hers is mine. That's how marriage works, sweetheart. Actually, that's not how property trusts work." I pulled out my phone, showing him the trust document. "This house is held in trust with Sofia and me as trustees. Any transfer of ownership requires our signatures. Which means whatever Mom signed is invalid without our consent." Frank's face darkened. He snatched at my phone, but I pulled it back. "That's bullshit. Some old paperwork doesn't mean anything. Your dad's dead. Your mom's my wife now. This is my house and you're trespassing. Maya? Mom's voice came from inside the house. Is that Maya? She appeared behind Frank, looking smaller than I remembered. At 53, Carmen Reyes had always been vibrant, strong, the backbone of Dad's business and our family. Now she looked faded, her hair graying, her clothes hanging loose. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Mija, you came. I tried to step forward, but Frank put his arm across the doorway. Mom looked at him, then at me, confusion and something else crossing her face. Something like fear. Frank, let her in. She's my daughter. Not until she understands the rules, Frank said. His breath already carried the smell of alcohol, and it wasn't even lunchtime. She wants to come into my house, she respects my authority. No more of this trust fund princess attitude. I met his eyes directly. Move. Or I call the police right now for unlawful denial of property access by a trustee. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me right there on the doorstep. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. His hands clenched into fists. His face went from red to purple. But Sofia had her phone out, camera pointed directly at him, and he saw it. He stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy. Welcome home, Princess Maya. Enjoy your visit. But remember, when your little vacation ends and you run back to Seattle, I'll still be here. This will still be my house. And your mother will still be my wife. I walked past him into the house where I'd grown up, and my heart broke at what I saw. Everything my father had built was being systematically erased. The walls he'd painted in warm terracotta tones were now a flat beige. The custom iron light fixtures he'd commissioned from a local artisan were gone, replaced with cheap brass ones from a hardware store. The saltillo tile flooring he'd laid by hand in the entryway was covered with ugly peel-and-stick vinyl. Family photos that once lined the hallway had vanished, replaced with Frank's collection of sports memorabilia and beer advertisements. Mom hovered nervously as I walked through the house, Frank following close behind like a warden monitoring an inmate. Sofia stayed by the door, phone still recording. Where's Dad's desk? I asked, stopping at what used to be his home office. The custom mesquite desk he'd built himself, with hidden compartments for important documents and drawers fitted with dovetail joints so precise they didn't need hardware. Frank sold it, Mom said quietly. We needed the money for repairs. What repairs? I looked around at the deteriorating house. The ceiling had water stains. The baseboards were coming loose. Nothing had been maintained, let alone repaired. The truck needed new tires, Frank interjected. And the AC went out last summer. Cost $3,000 to fix. Your mom's teacher's salary doesn't cover everything, you know. Some of us have to make hard decisions about what to keep and what to let go. I turned to face him. My father built that desk in 1998. It was worth at least $5,000 to a collector. What did you actually get for it? Frank's jaw tightened. That's none of your business. This is my household. I make the financial decisions. Show me the receipts. For the desk, for the AC repair, for everything you've sold or claimed to fix. I want to see where the money went. You want to see receipts? Frank moved closer, using his size to intimidate. How about you show me some respect first? You don't live here. You abandoned your mother for your fancy tech job in Seattle. You don't get to waltz in and demand anything. I stood my ground. I'm a trustee of this property. I have legal right to review all financial transactions related to it. Either show me the documentation willingly, or I'll subpoena it through the courts. Maya, please, Mom said, her voice strained. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Frank's right. You haven't been here. You don't know what we've been dealing with. Then explain it to me, Mom. I turned to her, keeping my voice gentle. Help me understand why Dad's desk is gone. Why his workshop is a game room. Why Sofia says you're 3 months behind on the property taxes when this house was paid off years ago. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Looked at Frank. He gave her a look that made her shrink further into herself. We've had some unexpected expenses, she finally said. Frank's been between contracts. The construction industry has been slow. The construction industry in Phoenix is booming, I replied. There's a building crane on every corner. Thomas Rivera told Sofia that Dad's company has more work than they can handle. Which brings me to my next question. What happened to Dad's share of Rivera and Reyes construction? That partnership dissolved when your father died, Frank said too quickly. That's not what the partnership agreement states. I pulled it up on my phone. Gabriel Reyes's ownership share passes to his heirs, which are Mom, Sofia, and me. We own 30% of a construction company that did $2 million in revenue last year. Where are the dividend payments? Frank's face went through several shades of red. Your mother signed those over to me. I'm managing the business interests now. You're not on the management board. You're not listed as a partner. And Mom can't sign over our shares without our consent. I looked at Mom. Did you sign something giving Frank control of Dad's business interests? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Frank said it was easier this way. That Thomas was taking advantage of us, not paying out what we were owed. Frank was going to handle everything and make sure we got a fair deal. And did you get a fair deal? How much has Frank gotten from the company in the last 4 years? Silence. Mom stared at the floor. Frank's hands clenched and unclenched. Sofia's camera captured every moment. I need to use the bathroom, I announced. Frank started to protest, but I was already walking down the hallway. The bathroom was another casualty. Dad's custom tile work was gone, jackhammered out and replaced with a prefab shower unit. I locked the door and immediately called Thomas Rivera. He answered on the second ring. Maya? Sofia said you might call. Listen, I need to talk to you about Frank. He's been claiming he has power of attorney over Carmen's business interests. He's been demanding larger and larger payments, threatening to sue if we don't comply. How much have you paid him? $42,000 over the past 2 years. He claims it's what Gabriel's share should have generated, but Maya, we've been paying out your proper dividends the whole time. To an account Carmen set up. Frank's payments are separate, and frankly, they're extortion. He's threatened to sue me personally, to report imaginary safety violations, to go to the media claiming I cheated your father. Do you have documentation of all this? Every email, every text, every canceled check. I've been keeping records because something felt wrong. Your father was my best friend. This isn't what he would have wanted. Can you send everything to my email? And Thomas, stop paying him. As of today, no more money to Frank Dalton for any reason. Maya, if I do that, he's going to explode. He's been getting increasingly aggressive. Last month he showed up at a job site drunk, threatening workers. I had to call the police. Send me the police report too. And Thomas? Thank you for looking out for Mom, even when she couldn't see what was happening. After I hung up, I opened my encrypted email app and started forwarding documents to Patricia Chen, the property attorney I'd researched on the flight. She specialized in elder financial abuse and property fraud. I'd sent her a retainer payment and a summary of the situation before my plane even landed. Now I added Thomas's information and a request for an emergency consultation. A knock on the bathroom door. You planning to move in there? Frank's voice, heavy with sarcasm. Some of us need to use the facilities. I opened the door. He stood too close, violating my personal space deliberately. I could smell the alcohol on him, see the broken blood vessels in his nose. This man had taken over my father's house, was drinking my father's money, had put his hands on my sister. I'm going to need access to the garage, I said calmly. And the storage shed. I need to inventory what's left of Dad's tools and equipment. You don't need access to anything. This is my property, and you're here on my sufferance. You know what? I've had enough of your attitude. Get out. I'm not leaving without Mom's financial records and property documents. Then I'm calling the police. Frank pulled out his phone. You're trespassing and harassing me in my own home. Please do call them. I'd love to file a report about you assaulting Sofia last night. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the bruises on her arm. I held up my phone, showing photos Sofia had taken that morning. Clear pictures of purple finger marks where Frank had grabbed her. Frank's face went white, then purple. You little bitch, he started forward. Frank, no. Mom stepped between us, finding some core of strength. Just stop. Please. All of you, just stop. Carmen, get out of the way, Frank ordered. No. Mom's voice shook but held firm. Maya's right. I need to see the financial records too. You said we were caught up on everything, but Sofia showed me the property tax notice. We're about to go into foreclosure. The house Gabriel built is going to be taken because we're $5,000 behind on taxes. I told you I'd handle it, Frank snapped. With what money? Where did the $42,000 from Thomas go? Where did the money from Gabriel's desk go, from his tools, from his equipment? Mom's voice rose, years of suppressed questions finally breaking through. I've been giving you my entire paycheck. You said you were managing everything. The mortgage is paid off, so where is all the money going? Frank's expression turned ugly. You want to know where it went? Keeping this house running. Keeping you fed and clothed. Dealing with your ungrateful daughters who think they're too good for their own family. Maybe if you'd been a better wife, if you'd shown me some appreciation instead of crying over a dead man every day, I wouldn't have to blow off steam at the casino now and then. The casino. There it was. Mom's face crumbled as the truth landed. How much? Frank laughed, a bitter sound. Does it matter? It's my money. I earned it dealing with you and your ghost husband for 4 years. You've been gambling away the business payments, I said. $42,000 in 2 years, plus Mom's salary, plus whatever you got selling Dad's things. All of it gone to the casino. I'm done with this interrogation. Frank pushed past Mom toward me. You're leaving. Now. He grabbed my arm, his grip painful. Take your hands off me. Or what? He squeezed harder. You'll call your lawyer? File your little reports? I've got news for you, princess. I've been married to your mother for 4 years. I've got rights. This house, her money, all of it is community property. Arizona is a community property state. What's hers is mine. He was close enough now that I could see the burst capillaries in his eyes, smell the whiskey underneath the mouthwash. Close enough that when I brought my phone up, the camera caught every detail of his face, his hand gripping my arm, the threat in his expression. Let go of my sister. Sofia was there suddenly, Derek right behind her. Derek was 6'1" and worked construction. He wasn't as big as Frank, but he was younger, stronger, and sober. Frank released me, some survival instinct kicking through his alcohol-fueled rage. Derek moved between us, and I saw calculation cross Frank's face. He was outnumbered now, and he knew it. Everyone out, Frank declared, trying to regain control. This is my house, and you're all trespassing. Carmen, get your daughters out of here. Mom stood frozen, caught between her husband and her children. I could see the war happening inside her, years of manipulation fighting against maternal instinct and the slowly dawning realization of what Frank really was. Mom, come with us, Sofia said gently. Just for tonight. Let's go to my place, have dinner, talk about everything. You don't have to make any big decisions, just come with us for now. Carmen, if you walk out that door, Frank said quietly, dangerously, you're choosing them over me. You're choosing the past over our future. Is that really what you want? I watched my mother's face, saw her age 10 years in 10 seconds as she finally understood the choice she'd been avoiding for 4 years. She looked around at the house her husband had built, now defaced and damaged. At the empty walls where family memories used to hang. At Frank, red-faced and threatening, so different from the charming man who'd courted her grief. "I'm going to get some things," she said quietly. "Then I'm going with my daughters." Frank's mask dropped completely. "Fine. Go. But you're not taking anything that's mine. And when you come crawling back, because you will, we'll have a very different conversation about respect and gratitude." Mom walked to her bedroom. Sofia followed her. I stayed in the living room with Derek between me and Frank, documenting every moment on my phone. Frank paced like a caged animal, muttering under his breath about ungrateful women and interfering children. 10 minutes later, Mom emerged with a single suitcase. She looked at Frank one more time, and I saw something break in her expression. Some final illusion shattering. "I'll be back for more of my things later. With the police, if necessary." "You do that," Frank said. "And I'll show them the quit-claim deed you signed. This house is mine now, Carmen. Everything in it is mine. You walk out with nothing." "We'll see about that," I said, ushering Mom toward the door. As we walked to Sofia's car, Frank appeared on the front porch. "This isn't over," he shouted. "I've got lawyers too. Better ones than whatever bargain attorney you think you found. You try to take this house, and I'll bury you in legal fees. I'll make sure Carmen doesn't get a dime." Neighbors were watching now from their windows and yards. Helen Park, who'd lived next door for 20 years, stood in her driveway with her arms crossed, taking in the scene. She caught my eye and nodded slightly. She'd heard everything. We drove in silence to Sofia's apartment in Tempe. Mom sat in the back seat staring out the window, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Everything Gabriel built," she whispered. "I let that man destroy everything Gabriel built." "No, Mom," I said, turning to look at her. "Frank damaged it. But he didn't destroy it. We're going to fix this. All of it." But I didn't know what I was promising, or if I could actually keep that promise. All I knew was that Frank Dalton had made a critical mistake when he put his hands on Sofia last night and on me today. He'd forced our hand, brought us together, and given us documentation of his violence. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. That night at Sofia's apartment, we sat around her small dining table with documents spread across every surface. Mom looked shell-shocked, staring at papers without really seeing them. Derek made coffee while Sofia applied ice to the bruises on her arm that had deepened to dark purple. I was on my third call with Patricia Chin, my new attorney, walking her through everything we'd discovered. Patricia's voice came through the speaker, crisp and professional. "The trust is ironclad. Your father set it up properly with witnesses and notarization. Frank has no claim to the property itself regardless of what your mother signed. However, as her spouse, he does have potential claims to other assets and community property accrued during the marriage." "What about the business payments from Rivera and Reyes?" I asked. "Thomas has been paying Frank $42,000 over 2 years. Can we recover that?" "We can try, but it depends on how Frank characterized those payments and what your mother knew or agreed to. If she authorized him to collect on her behalf, it becomes murkier." Patricia paused. "The assault on Sofia is our strongest immediate leverage. With photographic evidence and witnesses, we can get an emergency protective order tomorrow morning. That removes Frank from the property and gives us access to collect evidence." Mom's head snapped up. "You want to kick him out? Have him arrested?" "Mrs. Dalton," Patricia's voice was gentle but firm, "your husband physically assaulted your daughter. He grabbed Maya today with enough force to leave marks. He's been systematically stealing from your family and gambling away tens of thousands of dollars. An emergency protective order isn't punishment, it's safety." "But where will he go?" Mom's hands twisted together. "He doesn't have anywhere else." "That's not your problem to solve," Sofia said quietly. "Mom, he hurt me. He stole from us. He's destroying everything Dad built. Your daughter is right, Patricia continued. I've seen cases like this before. The financial abuse will only escalate. He's already behind on property taxes for a house that should have no expenses beyond utilities and maintenance. Where do you think this ends if you go back? Mom started crying silently. Derek brought her tissues and squeezed her shoulder. I pulled up the bank statements Sofia had managed to photograph earlier. Mom's teaching salary was direct deposited into a joint account. Every penny was withdrawn within days, usually at casino ATMs. The $42,000 from Thomas had been deposited into the same account and was gone within weeks. Patricia, what's our timeline look like? I needed to think strategically, push emotion aside and focus on the steps ahead. I can file for the emergency protective order first thing tomorrow morning. With the photographic evidence and witness statements, we should get a hearing by end of day. Simultaneously, we'll file to freeze all joint accounts and demand a full accounting of marital assets. We'll also notify the county about the trust structure, which should halt any foreclosure proceedings on the property taxes. Frank has a lawyer, I said. Or claims to. He threatened us with legal action. Let him try. Patricia's tone turned steely. I've been practicing family and property law in Arizona for 20 years. If Frank's attorney is worth anything, they'll advise him to settle quickly and quietly. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Assault, financial exploitation, possibly elder abuse depending on how aggressive we want to be with charges. Elder abuse? Mom looked stricken. I'm only 53. Financial exploitation of a spouse through deception and control qualifies, Patricia explained. Especially given the gambling addiction and systematic isolation from family. Mrs. Dalton, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Did Frank ever prevent you from seeing your daughters? Discourage contact with friends? Control access to money or transportation? Mom was quiet for a long moment. He said Maya was too busy for us, that it hurt too much when she only called once a month. He said Sofia was being manipulated by Derek, that she'd forget about her family once she got married. He said my friends from church were judgmental, that they looked down on him for not being Gabriel. She wiped her eyes. I believed him. I thought he was protecting me from being hurt. Classic isolation tactics, Patricia said. We can document all of this. Mrs. Dalton, I know this feels overwhelming, but you're not alone anymore. Your daughters are here. They're fighting for you and with you. But I need you to be honest with me about everything. What exactly did you sign, and when? Mom pulled out her phone with shaking hands and scrolled through her email. Frank had her send me copies of things for his records. There's a quitclaim deed from 3 months ago. A power of attorney from last year. Something about the business partnership that I didn't really understand. Forward all of those to me immediately, Patricia instructed. Maya, I'm also going to need you to contact Rivera and Reyes first thing tomorrow and inform them that Frank is no longer authorized to collect any payments. Have Thomas send me copies of all communication with Frank, especially any threats. Already done, I said. Thomas is relieved to finally have someone dealing with this officially. Good. One more thing. Patricia's tone shifted. Be prepared for Frank to escalate when he's served with the protective order. Men like this don't respond well to losing control. Make sure your mother stays with one of you at all times. Don't go to the house alone. Document everything he says or does, every text message, every phone call, every social media post. After we ended the call, the 4 of us sat in heavy silence. Derek finally spoke. I can take a few days off work. Help you get things from the house, be there when the process server shows up, whatever you need. Thank you, Sofia said, leaning against him. I don't know what we'd do without you. Mom stood abruptly and walked to the window, staring out at the Tempe lights. Your father would be so ashamed of me. Letting a stranger come in and destroy everything he worked for. Being so weak and stupid. You're not stupid, Mom, I joined her at the window. You were lonely and grieving, and Frank is a predator. That's what they do. They find vulnerable people and exploit them. I should have seen it. The signs were all there. The way he moved in so fast, how he always had an excuse for why we needed money, how he kept you both at a distance. Carmen, your father, would have seen through him immediately. Maybe, or maybe not. Dad wasn't perfect either. I said it gently. Remember the year he almost lost the business because he trusted the wrong partner? Before Thomas? People make mistakes. What matters is what we do now. Mom turned to face me, really looked at me for the first time since I'd arrived. When did you get so strong? So sure of yourself? I learned from you and Dad both. How to work hard, how to stand up for what's right, how to protect family. I touched her arm. You're still that person, Mom. You just forgot for a while. The next morning came too fast. We were at Patricia Chen's office by 8, going over final details before she filed the emergency protective order. Patricia was exactly what I'd hoped for when I'd researched Arizona property attorneys. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for taking on difficult family cases and winning. She reviewed the photographs of Sofia's bruises and my arm where Frank had grabbed me. The images were clear, time-stamped, impossible to dispute. "I've filed hundreds of these," Patricia said. "This is one of the strongest cases I've seen. The judge will grant it." "What happens then?" Mom asked nervously. "Frank will be served, probably this afternoon. He'll have to vacate the property immediately. A deputy will supervise while he collects essential personal items, clothing, toiletries, nothing else. He'll be prohibited from contacting any of you except through attorneys. Violation means immediate arrest." "He's going to be furious," Mom whispered. "Yes, he will." Patricia met her eyes. "Which is why we're also filing for a preliminary injunction to freeze all joint accounts and prevent him from selling or destroying any property. He won't have access to your money or your assets while this is sorted out." By noon, the filings were complete. Patricia called to confirm that a judge had reviewed the evidence and granted the emergency protective order. Frank would be served by 4 p.m. We had a few hours to prepare. Sofia and I drove to Desert Rose Drive with Derek following in his truck. The plan was to document everything inside the house before Frank was removed, create a comprehensive inventory of what remained and what had been destroyed or sold. Patricia had given us a legal right of entry as property trustees. Helen Park was in her front yard when we pulled up. She walked over immediately. "I heard shouting last night. Frank was on the phone, sounded drunk. Said something about burning it all down if you tried to take it from him." My blood ran cold. "He threatened arson?" "That's what it sounded like." Helen's expression was grim. "Your father was a good man. What Frank's done to that house, to your mother, it's criminal. If you need me to testify about anything I've seen or heard, I will." "Thank you, Helen. That might be exactly what we need." We entered the house using the keys Mom had kept. Frank's truck was gone. He was probably at his usual bar or the casino, unaware that his world was about to collapse. We moved through each room methodically, photographing everything. I narrated into my phone's voice recorder, creating an audio log to accompany the images. Living room, custom built-ins removed, likely sold. Estimated replacement cost $8,000. Family photographs missing, approximately 40 framed photos spanning 25 years. Walls damaged from removal of hanging fixtures. I moved through the space where I'd grown up, cataloging the destruction with clinical precision even as rage built in my chest. Sofia documented the kitchen. Dad's custom cabinets had been painted over with cheap paint that was already peeling. The commercial-grade stove he'd installed was gone, replaced with a standard electric range. The terracotta tile backsplash he'd brought back from Mexico had been covered with peel-and-stick plastic. In what used to be Dad's workshop, we found the full extent of Frank's transformation. The custom workbench was gone, the tool pegboards removed, the careful organization replaced with chaos. Empty beer bottles lined the floor. Poker chips and playing cards were scattered across the folding tables Frank had installed. The walls were covered with posters of women in bikinis and Confederate flags. Derek stood in the doorway, shaking his head. Your dad's workshop was legendary. Every contractor in Phoenix knew about the precision tools he kept out here, the projects he'd built. This is desecration. We moved upstairs to the bedrooms. My old room had been converted into storage, packed with Frank's belongings. Boxes of fishing gear, hunting equipment, cases of alcohol. Sofia's room was similarly stuffed with junk. But it was the master bedroom that made Mom's betrayal complete. Every trace of Gabriel Reyes was gone. The wedding photo that had hung over the bed, the dresser he'd built for their 10th anniversary, the reading chair where he'd spent evenings with books about architecture and design. All of it replaced with Frank's possessions. His clothes dominated the closet. His medications cluttered the bathroom. His mark on every surface. I opened the nightstand drawer and found a stack of pawn shop receipts. My hands shook as I photographed each one. Dad's wedding ring, pawned for $300. Mom's engagement ring, $2,000. The antique pocket watch that had belonged to my grandfather, $400. Every family treasure reduced to gambling money. Sofia found me sitting on the bedroom floor surrounded by receipts, finally crying. All of it, I said. He sold all of it. Everything that mattered, everything that held our history, just gone. She sat beside me, pulled me close. We'll get what we can back. And what we can't, we'll remember. Dad's not in these things, Maya. He's in us, in the way he taught us to fight for what's right. A sound from downstairs made us both freeze. Heavy footsteps. Frank's voice, loud and aggressive. Where are you? I know you're in here. This is breaking and entering. Derek appeared at the top of the stairs. He's home early. Looks drunk. We need to leave now. We're property trustees, I said, standing and wiping my face. We have legal right to be here. He's the one who's about to be removed. Frank appeared at the bottom of the staircase, swaying slightly. He held a baseball bat. I told you this was my house. You don't listen, do you? You entitled little brats never listen. Sir, Derek moved to block the stairs, put the bat down. We're here legally, and you're about to have much bigger problems. Get out of my way. Frank started up the stairs. I'm going to teach these girls the same lesson I taught their sister. Respect. That was when the doorbell rang. Followed by a loud knock. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. We have a court order to serve. Frank froze mid-step. His face went from red to white. What did you do? Sofia called from the bedroom window. There are 3 patrol cars outside. And is that Patricia's car? The knocking came again, more insistent. Mr. Dalton, open the door. We can see your truck in the driveway. Frank turned on me, the bat still in his hand. You called the cops on me? In my own house? It's not your house, I said calmly, even though my heart was pounding. It never was. And you're about to find out exactly what happens when you put your hands on the wrong family. The sound of a key in the lock. Patricia had given the sheriff entry authorization. Heavy footsteps in the foyer. Mr. Frank Dalton? You need to put the weapon down immediately and show us your hands. Frank looked at the bat in his hands like he'd forgotten he was holding it. He looked at me, at Sofia, at Derek blocking his path. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw real fear cross his face. He finally understood he'd lost. Weapon on the ground, now. The deputy's voice was calm but authoritative. Hands where we can see them. The bat clattered down the stairs. Frank raised his hands, and I watched justice begin its work. The deputies escorted Frank outside while one stayed with us to explain the process. Deputy Martinez was professional and calm, explaining that Frank would be allowed to collect essential items under supervision, then required to leave the property immediately. The protective order was valid for 14 days, with a full hearing scheduled at the end of that period. Frank stood by his truck, hands cuffed behind his back while Patricia spoke with the lead deputy. Even from the upstairs window, I could see him arguing, gesturing toward the house, his face contorted with rage. 2 neighbors had come out to watch. Word would spread through the community quickly. "We should document what he takes," Sofia said, her phone already recording. "Make sure he doesn't try to grab anything valuable." The deputies brought Frank back inside with Patricia following. He was uncuffed but flanked by law enforcement. "You get 15 minutes, Deputy Martinez told him. "Clothing, medications, basic toiletries. Nothing else. These officers will supervise what you pack." "This is ridiculous," Frank snarled, but his bravado was cracking. "You can't kick me out of my own home. I have rights. My lawyer is going to destroy all of you." "Your lawyer can take it up at the hearing," Patricia said coolly. "Right now, you're subject to a valid protective order issued by a judge after reviewing evidence of assault. I suggest you pack quickly and quietly." Frank stomped toward the bedroom, the deputies following. We heard drawers slamming, angry muttering. He emerged 10 minutes later with a duffel bag in a box, his face murderous. "This isn't over." He looked directly at me. "You think you've won? You've just started a war you can't finish. Mr. Dalton, you're prohibited from any contact with these individuals," Deputy Martinez warned. "That includes threats. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." "I'm not threatening anyone." Frank's smile was ugly. "I'm just stating facts. You want this house? Fine. See how much it costs you in legal fees. See how much your precious mother suffers while you drag this through the courts. Every dollar you spend fighting me is a dollar she doesn't have for food or medicine." Mom had been silent until now, standing in the hallway with her arms wrapped around herself. But something in Frank's words sparked something. "You're worried about my well-being now? After gambling away everything Gabriel left us? After selling our wedding rings for poker money?" Frank's expression shifted, became almost pleading. "Carmen, baby, these girls have poisoned you against me. Everything I did was for us, for our future. The investments didn't pan out, but I was trying. You sold Gabriel's tools, my wedding ring, your stepdaughter's inheritance, all for investments?" Mom's voice rose. "I saw the pawn shop receipts, Frank. I saw the casino ATM withdrawals. Don't lie to me anymore." "Fine." Frank's mask dropped completely. "You want the truth? I married you for this house. For Gabriel's business connections. For the money I thought you had. Turns out you're just a pathetic teacher who couldn't let go of a dead man. You think I wanted to spend 4 years listening to you cry about perfect Gabriel? I earned every penny I took." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the deputies looked shocked. Patricia's pen moved rapidly across her legal pad, documenting every word. Mom's face transformed. The guilt, the uncertainty, the self-blame I'd seen since I arrived, it all burned away in the face of Frank's casual cruelty. "Get out." Her voice was steady, cold. "Get out of Gabriel's house and never come back." Frank grabbed his bags and pushed past us. The deputies followed him outside. We watched from the window as he threw his belongings into the truck, still arguing with the officers. Finally, he climbed in and peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing. "Mrs. Dalton," Patricia said gently, "I know that was difficult, but what he just said is extremely valuable for our case. He admitted on the record, in front of witnesses, that he married you fraudulently with intent to exploit your assets. That changes everything." Mom sank into the one chair Frank hadn't sold, Dad's old reading chair that had somehow survived in the garage. "I was such a fool. 4 years of my life. Gabriel's legacy nearly destroyed. All because I couldn't stand being alone." "You're human," Sofia knelt beside her. "You made a mistake trusting the wrong person. But Mom, you just stood up to him. You told him to leave. That took courage. Your daughter is right, Patricia sat across from Mom. I've seen victims of financial abuse who never find that strength. What you did just now, breaking through his manipulation and seeing the truth, that's huge. Over the next week, the scope of Frank's theft became devastatingly clear. Thomas Rivera sent detailed accounting records showing that Frank had collected $42,000 in business distributions meant for Mom, claiming to be her financial representative. None of that money had gone toward household expenses or investments. Casino records subpoenaed by Patricia showed Frank had lost over $60,000 in 2 years at 3 different Phoenix area casinos. The pawn shop receipts we'd found led us on a depressing treasure hunt. Dad's wedding ring was gone, sold and resold beyond recovery. But the pocket watch was still there, waiting in a display case. The shop owner, a kind older man named Mr. Chen, recognized Dad's name from the engraving. Your father came in here for years, buying vintage tools and hardware. I always wondered why his watch ended up here. When I told him what Frank had done, he sold it back to us for exactly what he'd paid. Some things should stay in families, he said. Mom wore the watch every day after that, a small piece of Dad restored. The financial forensics revealed more disturbing patterns. Frank had opened credit cards in Mom's name without her knowledge, running up $18,000 in debt. He tried twice to get a reverse mortgage on the house, lying on the applications about his ownership status. Only the trust structure had prevented the fraud from succeeding. He'd sold or pawned over $30,000 worth of Dad's tools, equipment, and personal items. But he'd also made mistakes. His greed had made him sloppy. He'd kept receipts, left email trails, bragged to his drinking buddies about his scores. Patricia collected it all, building a case that was overwhelming in its thoroughness. The preliminary hearing arrived 2 weeks after Frank's removal. He showed up with an attorney, a tired-looking public defender who clearly knew this was a losing case. Frank himself looked diminished. 2 weeks without access to Mom's money had taken a toll. His clothes were wrinkled, his face unshaven, the swagger gone. Judge Morrison reviewed the evidence with increasing displeasure. Financial records, pawn shop receipts, witness statements from neighbors and business associates, the recorded admission of fraudulent intent. Mr. Dalton, she said finally, I've been on the bench for 18 years. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of financial elder abuse and exploitation I've seen. Your Honor, Frank's attorney began, my client acknowledges that mistakes were made, but mistakes? Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. Your client systematically looted a family's assets, sold heirlooms for gambling money, committed identity theft, and physically assaulted 2 women. These aren't mistakes. This is a pattern of predatory behavior. The protective order was extended indefinitely. Frank was ordered to pay immediate restitution of all funds taken from the business distributions, plus the value of all sold items. The credit card debt opened fraudulently was assigned entirely to him. Most importantly, the judge invalidated the quit-claim deed Mom had signed, ruling it was obtained through fraud and misrepresentation. The house belongs to the Gabriel Reyes Family Trust, Judge Morrison declared. Mr. Dalton has no claim, no rights, and no authorization to enter the property. Mrs. Dalton is granted full protection and the court encourages her to pursue criminal charges if she chooses. Outside the courthouse, Frank tried one last time. Carmen, please. I made mistakes but we can fix this. For years has to mean something. It means 4 years I'll never get back, Mom said. For years I wasted on a man who saw my grief as opportunity. Goodbye, Frank. We walked away, leaving him standing alone on the courthouse steps. Patricia pulled me aside. Maya, I need to tell you something. The district attorney wants to file criminal charges. Identity theft, fraud, and possibly assault. They're building a case, but they need your mother's cooperation. What's the timeline? Months, possibly a year before trial. But with the evidence we have, Frank is looking at serious prison time. 2 to 5 years minimum. Mom overheard. Prison? She looked shaken. I just want him gone. I don't want to spend years dealing with trials and testimony. Mrs. Dalton, Patricia said gently, if you don't press charges, Frank will do this to someone else. Another lonely widow, another grieving woman. Men like him don't stop until they're forced to. Mom was quiet for a long moment, watching Frank drive away in his truck. Then she straightened her shoulders. File the charges. Tell the DA I'll cooperate fully. Gabriel would want me to protect others, even if I couldn't protect myself. That evening, we returned to Desert Rose Drive. The house felt different without Frank's presence, lighter somehow. Sofia had arranged for a cleaning crew to come through, removing all traces of Frank's occupation. The beer bottles were gone, the Confederate flags taken down, the cheap modifications stripped away. But the real work was just beginning. The built-ins Dad had crafted needed to be recreated. The saltillo tile had to be uncovered or replaced. The workshop required complete restoration. Mom's finances needed untangling and rebuilding. The emotional damage needed healing. Thomas Rivera stopped by that evening with a check, the business distributions that should have gone to Mom over the past 2 years. There's more coming, he said. Gabriel's share of the company has been growing. You're entitled to quarterly payments going forward. I'll make sure you get every penny. Thank you for not giving up on us, Mom said. For keeping records when Frank was threatening you. Gabriel was my brother in everything but blood. Thomas smiled sadly. I promised him I'd look after you and the girls if anything happened. I failed for a while, let Frank intimidate me. But your daughters, they have Gabriel's fire. They reminded me what it means to fight for family. After Thomas left, the three of us stood in the living room where the built-ins used to be. Sofia pulled out her phone and showed us photos from when we were kids, Dad standing proudly beside his handcrafted work. Marcus Williams called today, Sofia said. You remember him? He worked with Dad for years. He wants to help restore everything, says he has Dad's original plans and measurements. He'll do it at cost, just materials, because that's what Gabriel would have done. Mom started crying again, but this time they were different tears. Your father surrounded himself with good people. I forgot that. Let Frank make me forget. We didn't forget, I said. We just needed to remember together. The next morning, I called my boss in Seattle. I need to extend my leave, possibly indefinitely. Family situation is ongoing. There was silence on the other end, then understanding. Take the time you need. Your work here can wait. Family can't. I set up a temporary office in what would become Dad's restored workshop. Between video calls and project management, I coordinated the house restoration. Marcus and his crew arrived within days, carefully removing Frank's modifications and uncovering the original structure beneath. They found surprises. Behind the cheap paneling Frank had installed, Dad's original plaster walls were intact, hand-textured in the southwestern style he'd loved. Under the vinyl flooring, most of the saltillo tile had survived. The bones of the house were strong, just hidden. Patricia called with updates as the criminal case progressed. The DA is very interested. They've added charges based on the financial forensics. Frank is looking at 15 counts including identity theft, fraud, forgery, and assault. His public defender is pushing for a plea deal. What are they offering? 5 years, 3 minimum before parole eligibility. Full restitution, permanent restraining orders, felony record. And if we go to trial? Could be 10 years or more, but trials are unpredictable. Patricia paused. Maya, your mother needs to decide what she can handle emotionally. A trial means testifying, cross-examination, reliving everything publicly. I'll talk to her. That night, I found Mom in the backyard sitting by the pool Dad had installed when Sofia and I were young. The water was murky from months of neglect, but Marcus had said the equipment was salvageable. Frank's lawyer wants him to take a plea deal, I said, sitting beside her. 5 years in prison. But it means no trial, no testimony. It would be over relatively quickly. And if we go to trial? Possibly more time for Frank, but months or years of legal proceedings for us. Your choice, Mom. What do you need? She watched the desert sunset paint the sky in oranges and purples. Gabriel proposed to me right here. Built this pool himself that summer, worked on it every evening after his regular jobs. She smiled at the memory. He said every family deserved a backyard oasis. Somewhere to make memories. I remember. Sofia and I practically lived in this pool growing up. Frank wanted to fill it in. Said it was too much maintenance, too expensive to run. I told him no, that was my one boundary. He complained about it constantly, but I wouldn't budge. She turned to me. That pool is the only thing I successfully protected from him. Everything else, I let him take or destroy. You protected yourself, finally. That counts for something. Tell the DA we'll take the plea deal. Mom's voice was firm. I want this finished. I want to move forward, not spend years looking backward. 5 years is enough to keep Frank away from other women. That's what matters. The plea hearing happened 3 weeks later. Frank stood before Judge Morrison and admitted to all charges. His voice was flat, defeated. As the judge detailed the sentence, 5 years in state prison, 3 before parole eligibility, full restitution, permanent restraining orders, I watched Mom's face. She didn't look triumphant or vengeful. She just looked relieved. Outside, Frank was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at us, didn't make any final threats or pleas. He was finally, truly gone. Sofia hugged Mom tight. It's over. It's really over. No, Mom said, but there was strength in her voice now. It's beginning. Now we rebuild. The restoration took 3 months. Marcus and his crew worked methodically, treating Dad's house with the reverence it deserved. Every morning I'd wake up in my old bedroom, now cleared of Frank's junk and repainted in the soft blue I'd chosen as a teenager, and hear the sounds of construction. Saws humming, hammers striking, the steady rhythm of creation replacing years of destruction. Mom returned to work at Desert Valley Community College, but something had shifted in her. She walked taller, spoke more confidently, smiled more easily. Her colleagues noticed the change. Several told me privately how worried they'd been during the Frank years, watching her shrink into herself, but feeling powerless to intervene. The day the built-ins were completed, Marcus called us all to the living room. The recreation was stunning, matching Dad's original work down to the smallest detail. Marcus had even tracked down the same wood stain Dad had used, making the new shelves blend seamlessly with the home's aesthetic. Mom stood before them with tears streaming down her face, running her hands over the smooth wood. Gabriel would be so proud, she whispered. Not just of the work, but of you girls. Of what you fought for. Sofia was planning her wedding now, set for the following spring. She and Derek wanted to have the reception in our backyard, by the pool Marcus had restored to crystal clarity. It felt right, celebrating new beginnings in the place Dad had built for making memories. Thomas Rivera stopped by regularly with business updates. The company was thriving, and Mom's quarterly distributions were substantial. More than enough to cover her expenses and rebuild her savings. He'd also offered me a consulting position, helping Rivera and Reyes expand into sustainable building practices. I could work remotely from Seattle but visit Phoenix regularly. Patricia called one afternoon with unexpected news. The restitution money is coming through. Frank's been working in the prison kitchen, and they're garnishing his wages. It'll take years to repay everything, but the court is serious about enforcement. She paused. Also, there's a fund for selling his truck and other assets. Between everything, you should recover about 40% of the stolen value. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Mom used part of it to buy back items from the pawn shops that were still available. A few of Dad's tools, some pieces of her grandmother's jewelry, small treasures that Frank had scattered across Phoenix. Helen Park organized a neighborhood gathering to celebrate the house's restoration. People came bearing food and stories about Dad, about watching him work on the house over the years, about his kindness and skill. Mom sat surrounded by community, by people who'd known Gabriel, who remembered what the house had been and rejoiced in what it was becoming again. The criminal case concluded with Frank beginning his sentence at the state facility in Florence. I didn't think about him much anymore. He'd become irrelevant, a temporary disruption in our family's story rather than the ending he'd tried to write. 6 months after I'd received Sofia's midnight text, I stood in Dad's workshop. Marcus had restored it completely, recreating the tool pegboards, refinishing the workbench, even finding vintage replacements for some of the equipment Frank had sold. But we'd also modernized it, adding proper ventilation, updated electrical, LED lighting. It honored the past while embracing the future. I'd made a decision. Seattle would always be part of my life, but Phoenix was home. I'd accepted Thomas's offer and found an apartment in Tempe, close enough to visit Mom regularly but far enough to maintain independence. My company had agreed to let me work remotely permanently, impressed by the productivity I'd maintained during the crisis. Mom found me in the workshop, looking at the photo of Dad we'd mounted on the wall. He was young in the picture, maybe 30, standing in front of the house he'd just finished building. His smile was proud, hopeful, full of dreams for the future he was creating. "I've been thinking about dating again," Mom said quietly. "Just thinking. I'm not ready yet, but someday I might be." "That's healthy, Mom. You deserve companionship. You deserve to be happy. But this time I'll be smarter. I'll introduce them to you and Sofia right away. I'll keep my finances separate. I'll remember that I'm complete on my own, that I don't need someone to save me from loneliness. You were always complete. You just needed reminding." She hugged me tight. "Thank you for coming home. For fighting when I couldn't. For saving Gabriel's legacy. We saved it together. All of us." That evening, Sofia came over for dinner. The three of us sat at the table Dad had built, eating Mom's cooking, talking and laughing without the shadow of Frank's presence. The house felt alive again, filled with the warmth and love it had been designed to hold. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Final paperwork filed. The trust is updated with additional protections. No one will ever be able to do what Frank did again. Your father's legacy is secure." I showed the message to Mom and Sofia. We raised our glasses of iced tea in a silent toast. To Dad, to the house he built, to the family he raised, to the strength we'd found in fighting for what mattered. The sun set over the desert, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Through the window, I could see the saguaro cacti Dad had carefully preserved when building the house, standing sentinel over the property. They'd been here before our family arrived and would be here long after we were gone, patient witnesses to the cycles of growth and survival. Frank had tried to erase Gabriel Reyes from his own home, to replace a family's history with his own selfish desires. But houses built on strong foundations don't fall easily. Families rooted in love don't break without a fight. We'd taken back the keys. We'd reclaimed the house. Most importantly, we'd remembered who we were and what we were worth. The fight was over, but the real work of rebuilding was just beginning. And this time, we were doing it together, stronger and wiser for everything we'd survived. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.